Firstly, I'd just like to welcome you all to our Oxfordshire Inclusive Economy Partnership seminar on social value and procurement. And so fantastic to see you all here tonight. So here's the agenda for this evening. Um, we've got a host of fantastic speakers who are going to be talking about different elements of social value and procurement. So Grant's going to start the evening by talking about what is social value and providing a landscape of social value across Oxfordshire. Then we've got some procurement perspective with two people from Oxfordshire County Council, Richard Scarlett and Annette Osborne from Oxford City Council procurement teams talking about what they're doing within their organisations. And we'll be hearing from Karen and James around the opportunities to deliver and benefit from social value through community employment plans and Match My Project. And then finally, we've got two fantastic businesses talking about what they're doing around social value and how they've embedded it with their own organisations. So we've got Richard from Cleenol and Paula from Beard Construction. Unfortunately, we were going to have Rick Moore from Raw talking about the fantastic work they do, but he's not very well this evening. So we will have more time for the panel session. Because we've got quite a lot to get through, if you do have any questions, could I ask that you note them down and then we will go through them. You'll have an opportunity to ask the speakers in the panel session at the end. So a little bit about us. We're a unique partnership. We bring together organisations across public sector, private sector, and voluntary and community sector organisations, looking at delivering our vision around creating a more equitable county. I think we're, we're quite unique in sort of the breadth of organisations that participate within the partnership, as well as the fact that everyone provides their time on a voluntary basis. We're very fortunate that the six local authorities have contributed equally to funding my post to enable the partnership to be coordinated and delivered. Um, we've been in place since 2021, following a series of seminars pre-COVID, looking at the inclusive economy across the county. And one of the recommendations was to establish a county-wide partnership. Um, we Alongside all of the work we do around delivering our vision, we also have our charter. And the majority of people in this room are charter signees, but if you're not, please do consider signing up. Um, and as that says there, it's about how organisations can think about embedding that social value within their organisation, as well as being able to show that to the communities that they work within as well. So we follow four key principles, looking at how do we reduce the inequality. So looking at the data, looking at the areas where we can have the greatest impact with projects and organisations that we work with. How do we create greater opportunities, whether that's around employment pathways or developing social value in organisations, supporting local communities and citizens, again through our place-based working and social value, etc. And having that focus on the county as a whole. So how do we do it? We have four key focus areas and three working groups delivering those key focus areas. So we have our inclusive employment working group. That working group is looking at how do we bring together the right people and experts in employment and business, as well as voluntary and community sectors and public sector, to look at the barriers that people face to getting into employment, as well as the barriers that employers put in place, and what can we do differently to support those employers to think about those recruitment pathways within their own organisations. We've established a HR network around that to sort of speak about particular cohorts that we want to support. So whether it's prison leavers or refugees, care leavers, people further from employment, whether they have mental health issues or disabilities. We have our children and young people working group. So that's looking at two different sections. So the first subgroup looks at early years and the best start in life. We know how important that is and the impact that can have on life outcomes. And that also has a look that focuses on primary school as well, looking at literacy and numeracy, and how can we support voluntary action within schools around that. And then the second group is looking at youth futures. So, really impactful. We know that that's an issue for Oxfordshire. Growing number of claimants are young people thinking about are not in education or employment cohorts, um, and thinking about working with our inclusive employment working group. How do we create those recruitment pathways for our young people coming through? Um, and then the final working group is around social value and procurement, which I'm sure Grant will mention when he's get, comes on for his bit next. But that's what it says. We're going to try to deliver more social value through procurement processes, and then ensuring that social value is being delivered in the places that need it the most, and that it's more meaningful than it may have been perhaps in the past. And then we had another focus on place shaping, and that runs through all of our working groups where we're trying to bring in the voice of the community as much as we can. But we appreciate there's probably more work for us to do around that. Just some examples of some of the things that we do, some of the events we've had. So it was early years summit that I can use my pointer. Early years summit that we had at the beginning of the year. Really, the essence of the partnership is not to deliver projects directly. It's about how do we bring the right people together around a topic that we feel will make a difference around the inclusive economy. How do we signpost people to information? Um, so this was an example of bringing leaders across the system within early years to really start thinking about what we might do differently to change the outcomes for those young children. Um, we speak at various events. Bottom left-hand corner is a job readiness training session for refugees that we organise with the International Rescue Committee. Um, and at the top right is an organisation called Arch, Assisted Reading for Children, is who we support, providing volunteers into primary schools to support literacy. And we have our charter, as I mentioned. There's a variety of pledges that people can sign up to. You don't have to sign up to all of them. There may be one particular thing that you're doing really well that you want to shout about, or that you want to push your organisation further along on its journey. And we can support you through that, connect you with people who are already doing things like that, or provide you with information that might be helpful. Please do come and speak to me about it at the end. You see the room that we're in now is at the top. That's where we had our charter launch. And at the beginning of the year, we reached 100 charter signees. And as Tony said, we're looking to expand as always and encourage more people to join us on that journey. These are some of the organisations already signed up to the charter. And we're hoping that we'll have to go over 2 slides next time we meet. But yeah, if you want to find out more, we have our website, which has lots of information on it, or please do get in touch with me. But yeah, thank you. I'm going to hand over to Grant.
Right and left. Yeah. Hello, good evening. So I'm Grant Hayward. I'm a voluntary director at OSEP, which is a social enterprise. I'll talk about a little bit in a minute. But as Emma says, I also lead on the social value and procurement working group. And I'm not so sure I'm actually going to tell people what social value is. I did hear, Sol, that you were looking to hear. Hopefully you'll learn more. But with people like Kath and others in the room, there's no way, and Richard, there's no way I'm going to be doing that. But anyway, the idea is to set the scene really for this evening around the topic of social value. So I hope you don't mind me just mainly to give context to why I'm standing here, but just for information as well, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about OSEP first of all. So OSEP, as I mentioned before, is a social enterprise. It's a community interest company. It's been formed now over 11 years and was originally born out of the 2 universities, Oxford Brookes and University of Oxford, came together initially to support social enterprise across the communities in the region. Now, we've evolved a lot since there, quite considerably, really. But there's sort of 2 main strands to our work. That one of the strands is around providing direct support that I'll talk about in a second. And the other is very much around influencing strategy and policy to really highlight opportunities and to be able to advocate for those that we support. Increasingly, we're working with larger businesses, as Juliet, my colleague, mentioned. Um, and in particular, in terms of the Inclusive Economy Partnership, we've been supportive of it even before its inception, and very great supporters of the Inclusive Economy Partnership on the steering group, and as I say, me leading on the Social Value and Procurement um, working group. So OSEP it's well established now, and it has a credible, proven track record. We've delivered programs previously for the likes of Oxlep. We're working with local authorities that I'll touch on in a second, and also working with mainstream businesses. But significantly, the approach that we take is genuinely inclusive, collaborative, and in partnership. We are of the community for the community. We have a very lean model, and any income we generate, we try to funnel through to that community to help deliver programs. In terms of social value, it's a theme that we've been behind for a long time. The work that McKenna and Annie are doing around community wealth building, we've been champions of that as well. But in general, really, it's about encouraging and supporting any enterprise to have more positive impact through through business, if you like, positive and social impact. I mentioned the community before. It just gives you a little snapshot of some of the organisations. Some are in the room, but gives you an idea of the sort of broad range of organisations. It's a growing community. I mentioned direct support. I think what's important to say is that the likes of Enterprise Oxfordshire provides tremendous support for business, mainstream business, but the support that OSEP provides is very specifically focused on more impactful businesses. So whether that's charities that want to be more enterprising, social entrepreneurs, self-employed people, or even mainstream businesses, we're keen to support them. And on the left-hand side, you'll see the sorts of ways in which we provide that support. And again, significantly, a lot of that is delivered, most of it is delivered almost on a peer-to-peer basis, people in the room and others that are grassroots organisations delivering that support. So we provide services as well to business, local authorities. We're delivering some work at the moment for South Oxfordshire and Vale, as well as the City Council to provide support. We've done work with the County Council in the past as well, and commission services too. I mentioned championing and advocacy and influencing. We sit on a range of boards and steering groups, and the main idea of that, and we've actually made sure that we've influenced strategic plans to highlight the significance that doing business differently can have not only on the economy but on society and local communities as well. If you look at the Oxford Economic Strategy, for instance, you'll see specific reference there to the likes of social enterprise and to B Corps. So yeah, so I've tried. I'm also involved very much in the B Corp movement. I'm co-chair of the Be Local, which is a growing group of businesses that really place all stakeholders at the same level as shareholders. So when they make business decisions, we have a B Corp in the room, don't we? We might be hearing more from Richard about that as well. But effectively, when they make business decisions, they consider all stakeholders equally alongside their shareholders. So whether that's their staff, their communities, supply chain, the environment, they just make sure that decisions are based on that for everybody. Back to this topic. So in terms of social value, I just want to talk a little bit first of all about the working group. I think the first thing to say is that we've been doing some work for some time now. We've made some good progress. Probably our starting point was to recognise that people and organisations are at different stages. We'll hear from Annette and Richard about the way that the City Council has developed their social value procurement policies, and they've been placed for a while. But other, particularly anchor organisations, are keen to develop those as well. So we want to make sure that we can support them and learn and share across those. And one of the ways that we do that, we help to set up an anchor subgroup. So bringing those anchor organisations together so that can be shared as well. The other thing is not reinventing the wheel. There is some tremendous stuff that's going on already. We're going to hear some good examples from the likes of Richard and Paula. What we want to do is to use the exemplars, and Emma said it before, but we want to inspire others to come along that journey and to help and to I suppose, facilitate and broker that sharing and learning. Um, the other thing that's important as well is that you'll probably be aware there are a number of frameworks that sort of help people understand the ways in which they can deliver social value, and the ways you can do that we'll see in a minute. It's vast the number of ways you want to do it. So the working group, not so long ago, actually said, well, okay, you can do all this stuff, but how can we deliver social value that meets local needs and also supports the organisations in their organisational objectives? So what we did through the working group was to dig deep into local strategic plans and policies. And what we've done is we've crystallised that and come up with some headline themes and outcomes that we think will help support those objectives. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, but that was one of the main pieces of work that we've done. Now that we've got that in place, and you'll see it in a second, we're now working on developing some tangible examples of things that organizations can do. I'm a little bit cynical. I've been in this space for quite some time. It's great to see any social value being delivered, but I can't tell you how often we come across tokenistic tick boxing of the easy low hanging fruit, all of which is probably valuable, but there's so much more organizations can do. So we really want to help to bring some creative examples of how that can happen. We also want to work with procurement teams. We've had conversations with organizations that are trying to put this in place, and it's not easy, but we want to be able to help them. And we think the power of the togetherness can actually help with that as well. And particularly, when you've got organizations like we're going to hear from Annette and Richard, when we've got social value policies in place, businesses are being asked to deliver social value, and we want to help them make sure that that social value goes towards the sorts of things that we've identified that we think we need. And the other thing that's been talked about a lot and that we're working on is the idea of a local directory of some sort. So that's the work of the working group. I mentioned before the themes and outcomes. Sorry, it's a big. It's a bit. I don't expect you to read it, but this is a condensed version. It's a one pager of headline themes, and the sorts of outcomes that we're looking for. And the idea is we wanted to keep that as broad as possible, but we're now working on pulling out lots of different examples about the way in which this social value can be delivered. I think it's important to say, though, is that this is probably over a year old now. This is a living, breathing thing, and particularly when we look at the likes of the local government review, that our ambition is for this to evolve as the local needs are identified and change. Then we want to make sure that this follows that as well. I think the other thing, we're getting towards the end now. Really, one of the things that I wanted to stress was that we want to help people understand the broad range of ways that social value can be delivered. The broad range of social value that's needed in this place, but also the ways in which it can be delivered. Often supporting local charities is identified, which is really important, but it's an obvious one that people go to as an easy way. It's not necessarily always easy. The other one is buying from social enterprises and the voluntary sector. And personally, my heart's in that. We are doing that, and we can do more of that. But it's not just that. And with my independent hat on, leading this working group, we want to make sure that people understand that social value includes the development of employability and skills. We'll hear from Karen in terms of the community employment plans, which are helping with that as well. It is about building a stronger and fairer economy, and obviously that's at the heart of what the Inclusive Economy Partnership is doing. But through these activities, we can help to achieve that. I always personally say this isn't about philanthropy. Having a stronger and fairer economy isn't taking from the rich and giving to the poor. It's genuinely creating a different sort of economy where all organizations across all sectors can work together to deliver some of this stuff that's good for business, good for society, supports the local authorities, and so on. So stronger economy is really important. Buying locally, that's not just about social enterprises. Keeping the money in the local economy and really using that money to focus on supporting people locally. And through all of these activities, we really can, develop more resilience, create healthier and safer communities as well. And all what we can be doing is developing new creative ways of delivering social value that will do that as well. And clearly, the environment is an obvious one, really, but really supporting strategies to protect and improve our local environment. And one of my favourite ones is social innovation. Really creative ideas of developing social innovation. Equinox has been mentioned tonight. There's some fantastic opportunities for us to really get some social innovation going through that in an equitable way as well. So that's the other thing I'd say, just finally, it's the last slide, is this landscape has been evolving. 13 years, it's 2013 the Social Value Act came, and it's taken a long time, and we've come a long way, but there's a lot more to do. I really do believe that stars are aligning. There's two key factors that's been identified already, and Kath doing a huge amount of work in that, but public sector procurement is clearly driving that. When local authorities and public sector organisations are demanding of businesses that they need to deliver social value, that's quite impressive, and that's really going to build. But the other thing as well is, and also with the county and cities policies, that's really helped a lot. That really has, and we'll hear more from Annette and Richard about that in a second. But business generally is shifting. A lot of the work that I've been doing is working with mainstream businesses as well, and businesses do want to, people want to work for businesses that are doing the right thing. They want to buy from businesses that are doing the right thing, and they want to invest in businesses that are doing the right thing. And we'll hear from James about Match My Project, about the ways in which businesses are trying to do more of that within the local region. So, central government is driving it, and a little bit hot news. There is now a new office for the impact economy, which we've only just learned about, and we've got a meeting. Juliet and I have got a meeting with them next week. That's just been set up this month, so that's brilliant. Local government review, as we've said already, is going to provide some good opportunities as well. And the final point that I will make, and I'm sorry, I know that Jeremy says it often, and others do as well, but if we cannot get this right and really make this work in this place in Oxfordshire with all of the resources and all of the things that we've got, then I don't know anywhere else that can. So there's many people in this place. You're here because you're doing some great stuff, and we just want to help spread the word and inspire using your examples to get others more involved. And that's probably too much from me, really, isn't it? So I'm now actually going to, rather than talking the talk, we're now going to walk the talk, and we're going to hear first of all from Richard and Annette. I think, are we? Yes, we are. So can I hand over to you?
All right. So I wanted to let you know really how we review social value at the City Council, the various means that we use. So there is the procurement strategy, which is about to be hopefully approved by Cabinet in December. If not, it'd be back to the drawing board. And then as of February this year, anybody that deals with the public sector will know that there was the new Public Procurement Act that came out. And along with that was the National Procurement Policy Statement that we have to give regard to in everything that we do. We do monitor our spend with small to medium enterprises. We do monitor our spend locally. So that's anything with an OX postcode. Um, we're planning to monitor our spend with voluntary and community social enterprise. We don't do it at the moment, but that's something that we're looking at. And then I just want to talk to you through a bit more about other social value monitoring that we do. Which one was it? Am I going to go the right way? No, wrong way. There you go. Okay, so um, as I've said, I'm hoping to receive approval for the new procurement strategy, which will be enforced between 2026 and 2028. Um, it's tracking to Cabinet on the 10th of December. It's got to go through scrutiny before that. So there's a whole lot of hoops that we have to dance through to get that approved. But what I've detailed on this slide are just sort of like a few extracts setting out the background to the council spend, commitments, goals, and ambitions. So the council spend on goods, works, or services is increasing year on year. The average spend over the last 4 years at the City Council is £220 million. And that's ranged between 180 million and 305 million. 305 million was last year, so you can see the increase in spend that we've had. A lot of that can probably be attributed to homelessness, refugees. We've got a massive increase in spend around that. Under the new Procurement Act, tenders are evaluated using MAT now, which is the most advantageous tender. So anybody that knew the procurement regs before knew it was MEET, the most economically advantageous tender. So what that means is that we can look more now at, rather than just looking at the cost element, we can look at the total cost of everything that we're doing, and we can give more weighting to perhaps sort of like the technical aspects rather than just the cost. An inclusive economy is at the heart of the council. The proposed procurement strategy aims to support this by influencing the payment of the Oxford Living Wage, understanding the voluntary and third sector, and reviewing how we can address ethnic and social disparities. So that's really at the heart of what we're doing. So let's have a look at the National Procurement Policy Statement. So as part of this, all public buying authorities have to give due regard to this when tendering for goods, works and services. That means that we can't just decide on what we want to do, but we have to look at what are the national priorities, not just what are our own council priorities. So there's a lot that we have to consider. So we have to consider how we can create opportunities for small businesses and social enterprise, how we can ensure that fair wages are paid in our contracts, and we need to embrace innovation and new technology. So we need to accelerate our move to net zero, and we at the council at Oxford City has got quite an ambitious target around that. We're ensuring that within our contracts, our suppliers have high environmental standards, encouraging through social value commitments in our contracts how suppliers might be able to reduce crime, so working across communities to do that. And through the social value commitments in our contracts, encourage employment opportunities to those that struggle to access jobs and provide training opportunities where there are skill gaps and remove barriers where we can. All of this inherently will support good physical and mental health. So that is all part of what we're trying to achieve under the MPPS. So if we dive into the National Procurement Policy Statement a little more, and this is what the Council does and will continue to do under the new Act to drive economic growth, to deliver value for money for the public purse, because that's what we're all about. So the council commits to provide SMEs and VCSEs. If I shorten it, is that all right? I don't like you. Right, okay. Just wanted to check. So the council commits to provide SMEs, VCSEs a fair chance at public contracts. The council commits to work across boundaries, i.e. with other local authorities or charities, social enterprises where we can. The council commits to ensure that the council has the right level of commercial capability and that governance is in place to effectively collaborate and manage its contracts. And that's a key. The council commits to break down the barriers to enable VCSEs and SMEs the ability to tender for council work by considering how we can break larger tenders into lots, building into tenders the provision of local supplier utilisation, and inviting suppliers to networking events for specific projects. So we're really trying to sort of break things down a little more and offer more in terms of training and support. Also, another thing that we sort of have listened to is extending deadlines for responses where possible. So, large multinational organisations probably have a specific bid team, and that's all they're doing. Small local businesses don't have that. Somebody's normally out of work during the day, and then they're coming back to put a bid in later on in the evening. So, how can we support that? How can we extend those times? Um, and the other thing is looking to provide higher weightings for Oxford-based suppliers. So that's something under the new Act that we can do now. We always say, and we've had it in all of our paperwork for a long time, is that when we're going out to the market for quotes, at least one quote should be from a local supplier. We can run closed competitions for below threshold procurements. So that means that if the council has knowledge of local suppliers, it can run competitions just with those local providers. Okay. To do that, we need to know who those local providers are. And that's not just me in procurement, that's all of the individual buyers. We're a devolved procurement across the city council. So how do you notify everybody that you might need to across the council you're there and tell us what you're doing. So just wanted to sort of show you how we're performing at the moment. Okay. So whilst the percentage of spend with SMEs has decreased since 2024, you'll see that the actual spend with SMEs has increased from £24 million a year to £37 million. So there's a real-time increase in value of £13 million with SMEs. Again, looking at local spend, whilst this percentage of spend has fallen, the actual spend has increased by £17 million from 72 million to 89 million pounds. So it's disappointing in the percentage. There are reasons behind that. What we can't track in any of this is indirect SME spend, indirect local spend. So if we've got a contract with perhaps the Hills, which is a building or builders, they will be spending locally. They will be spending with small businesses. We can't track that indirect spend. And that's where a lot of our percentages have fallen there. So what's missing at the moment is the recording and monitoring of the council spend with VCSEs. The good news is that we're in the process of baselining that spend currently. The difficulty is, and I think that Grant alluded to this earlier, is that there's actually not a register listing all VCSEs. So that's actually going to make our life a little bit harder in terms of that baselining. We can do it with some of the businesses that we trade with. We know who they are. We know that they are VCSEs, and we can now flag it on a system. That's the other problem that we have is we've got a flag for SMEs. We know we can pick up OX postcodes. Now, how can we flag VCSEs, and how can we make sure that we don't duplicate the reporting and the monitoring of it? So, and if we can flag it on an Aggresso system, which is an old system, can we extract that data out as well to give us meaningful reports? So there's quite a bit of work that we need to do around it, but we will be doing that. And the aim is to set the council a target for spend with VCSEs by the 1st of April 2026. So other things the council does to support social value. So I've been working with Grant and Emma and a few other organisations to develop an Oxfordshire-based set of themes, outcomes and measures, affectionately known as OxToms in its early days, but I think we've gone past that now. Um, I've actually, that chart that you saw up there, right, is actually embedded in our tender documents at the moment. We don't just put the whole document out. What we try and do is lift out particular perhaps themes or outcomes that we're looking for that are aligned for what we're going to the market for. So, if we're going out for a £15 million construction contract, then what we'll be looking for in that, in terms of social value deliverables, will be completely different to a consultancy firm. So that's what we do, but we're in the process of developing that further with the support of Grant and Emma into making it more meaningful, more understanding, or more understandable. So when somebody picks it up, they can say, "That's what I can do." They know exactly what they can do and how they can score good good weighting in their responses that they put into us. All of our tenders include a social value weighting of 10%. That's only applicable to works and services contracts. Products, it's a bit harder to incorporate social value with that. We have matched my project, but I'm not going to steal James's thunder on that one. I'll let him talk to you about that. We hold how to tender workshops to support local SMEs. My team hold those workshops. Sometimes we'll hold them if we've got a specific project coming up. Then we'll try and support local businesses. So perhaps if we were putting out a cleaning contract, we might bring in local cleaning suppliers and say, look, this is what the paperwork's going to look like. We can't fill it in for you, but we can tell you what it looks like, and we can give you an indication as to what the marking looks like, how we might be scoring it, just to try and help. We host a Meet the Buyer Day in the town hall each day. Not each day, that'd be way too much each year. So that's going to be on the 12th of February 2026. If any of you would like to come along to that, you're more than welcome. We've got an Eventbrite site for that. And following this, I can give the link out. I'm sure Emma will send that out to everybody. We're increasing our focus on monitoring and reporting of social value commitments in contracts. So that's always a really difficult one to do. Suppliers commit to social value. We give them a weighting for that. They could win the bid based on the social value that they're committing. We've not been particularly good at following that through. And I think perhaps some large suppliers have maybe known that. We're now trying to get really hard on that. We're now trying to put more of a monitor in place, making sure that contract management meetings as a general agenda item has that. What are you doing? You committed to this in your contract. How much have you done on that so far? When are you going to do it? What's the value in that? So we're really trying to drive hard to monitor that in all of our contracts. So just to end this session, oh, have I got a slide missing there? Okay, I have. Have I? Yeah, no, right at the bottom, sorry. What you need to do. If you haven't done so already and you're not registered on the Intend portal, that's where we advertise all of our contracts. Now, Intend is a bit of a quirky portal because you have to register on. So if you want to do work for Buckinghamshire and you want to do work in Oxfordshire and you want to do work in Berkshire, and they all use Intend, you have to register on each one of those independently. There's not one system that will allow you to do it. So I'm really sorry about that, but that's just the quirk of the system. Okay. Um, you do need to register on the central digital platform. Um, that's all to do with. I mean, Kath will probably know this is Big Brother watching you, but it's transparency. We'll call it that. But when you bid now, you will need to put a reference number in to show that you registered on the portal on the central digital platform. Now, what that will help you with is that you only need to put your information in there once. So if you're bidding for quite a few contracts, it will save you having to provide your financials every time, provide your insurance certificates every time. It's a little bit of work up front that perhaps will save you a little bit of time at the end. Make sure you keep your contact details up to date. That's another big failing. Companies set themselves up and they might have an individual name as a contact name for the portal. That person will go and then everything just goes into the ether, and organizations then don't get the opportunities on the portal. So just make sure that you keep all of the details up to date. And then when an opportunity comes up, make sure that you respond within the allotted timetable. So I hope that gives you a bit of a overview of what we do. Any questions? Or are we saving them for the end? Okay. And I'll pass on to Richard.
Super. So a lot of what Annette said applies to us as well. All of the national procurement policy statements, the Procurement Act, etc., also applies to the county council. So conveniently, we hadn't discussed what each of us was going to cover, but I'm not covering any of that, so that's good. So my focus is just on what are we doing. I'm about 4 months into the role, so coming in fresh. I've come from central government and having to do this at central government as well, but it's an opportunity at a local authority to be able to have a bigger impact because central government is too far removed from people's actual lives, from my experience. So we developed the social value action plan. Called it an action plan because we wanted it to be action orientated. We have had various documents throughout the last year, 2 years, 3 years, various proposals, summaries, documents, updates, definitions have gone up to our cabinet and our wider council meetings to say this is what social value is, isn't it important? None of them have said, what are we actually going to do about it? So I've called it an action plan, partly because it means I don't have to go up through all of those hoops again, rather than calling it a policy. But it also means that I can take all of that stuff, which council and cabinet members and elected officials have already approved and said, yes, this is what it means to us as a definition, and run with it. You can say, great, fine, let's get on and do stuff. We have historically had a rather uncoordinated approach to social value. I refer to it as a blunderbuss approach. We kind of go out with a tender and offer up the entire social value model and say, supplier, what can you offer us? Lovely. I'm going to assume that that's valuable. Thank you very much. We'll move on and award the contract. So it's uncoordinated. We're not asking them for anything. And the metaphor I like to use is if I'm going to market for pens and a supplier offers me pencils, I don't want to buy pencils. I want to buy pens. The same approach should apply to social value. I have a need. I don't care what you'd like to provide me. I have a need, and therefore I need to meet that need. We have used, and we do currently use, an external platform to support social value. It is hit and miss, is a generous way of putting it. It is not that effective in my experience as well. It acts as a barrier to entry because you have to pay to be on that platform. You have to pay for the privilege of reporting your social value contribution under our contract. Creating a pay-to-play scenario is, in my view, unethical, and so we want to remove those barriers. And finally, same as Annette has covered off, we've got a wonderful opportunity and responsibility as a local authority to utilize our spend power to influence the local economy, the local communities. And we go back to our strategic mission, which is to be a place shaper of choice. So we want to be a positive influence on the county. So our action plan breaks down into 6 work streams. And each of those work streams, the idea is it all comes together. I'm sure we can share the slides afterwards. Everyone's taking photos of it. I don't blame you. So first one is the SME and VCSE contracting vehicles. So what can we actually put in place that gives us a quick and ready route to market to engage SMEs and VCSEs? I've taken inspiration from National Highways, who put in place a VCSE, what's called Dynamic Purchasing System, DPS. And what it is it's there, it's ready to go. New suppliers who are VCSEs can join it at any point in time. Based on that model. In the future, it'll be different because of the new regulations, but any qualifying supplier can join that, and then that forms a first port of call. So I want to go and buy something. Great. Have you checked this agreement first? Have you checked whether any of these suppliers can meet that demand? If not, great, fine. We go out to market like we normally would, but that's a quick route to market. It's compliant. It works with our local economy partners and hopefully delivers greater social value. A social value policy refresh of the policy we've got is out of date. It is 21, 22. Things have moved on. There have been a couple of updates to the social value model. We've got the Procurement Act that has come in, which reshapes how we're supposed to look at social value. So we need to refresh that. Part of our refresh of social value, and I'm stealing myself from my next slide, is going to look at what it actually means for us when we're evaluating tenders. And that comes onto the evaluation guidance as well. But prioritizing our social value criteria. So Annette covered off the Oxford TOMS, essentially. Our approach is to say we as an organization, as a county council, we have strategic missions and we have legal obligations. Part of that is about supporting the economic well-being of the county, the community well-being of the county. So if those are our missions, what does that actually translate to? As an example, we're a Marmot county, which means that we are trying to resolve health inequalities, long-term health inequalities across the communities in Oxfordshire. We're also looking at income inequalities, opportunity inequalities, supporting youth unemployment. So if those are our strategic missions, then how can we tie our social value to those missions? The idea is through prioritizing, rather than saying, here's the social value model, suppliers, tell us what you can give us, We can say, this is what we're trying to achieve. This is the outcome that we're trying to achieve. Tell us what you're going to do to contribute to those outcomes. So every time we're spending money, not only are we getting the products and services that we wanted to buy, they are also contributing to those missions. And we can tie back every pound of spend to those missions. The evaluation guidance flows from that and says, if those are our priorities, well, what does good look like? And that means training up our own teams internally. So making sure that evaluators know what they're looking for and what good looks like. It will also extend out to training suppliers. So offering that education to say, this is what a good idea looks like. This is what you could put forward. And in that, recognize an inherent social value. So an SME or VCSE is inherently socially valuable. In the context of us as a county council, an organisation that is based in Oxfordshire is inherently socially valuable because it is supporting our mission to support the Oxfordshire economy. So how do we recognise that through our evaluation, giving those suppliers more marks, or indeed not requiring additional incremental activity on top of? That will also benefit smaller projects. So if you've got a 6-month contract, the ability to deliver a brand new socially valuable scheme within that 6 months is incredibly limited. So actually, let's recognize and work with suppliers who are inherently socially valuable, rather than just saying, oh, well, social value probably won't apply in this instance then. And then we could end up working with anybody. We want to remove barriers for SMEs and VCSE, same as Annette. This is about what can we stop doing, which makes no sense. So in my world, running a tender for less than £100,000 doesn't make sense, because the amount of time and effort that I have to put into that is disproportionate. The amount of time and effort that suppliers have to put into a £100,000 tender, even an average tender, is going to cost 10 grand of effort, because it's the time it takes to register on the platforms, to download and read through all the documentation that you've got to respond to, filling it out. If it's an SME, potentially going out and getting external solicitors' feedback on the terms and conditions, the amount of time and energy that goes into it is just disproportionate. So it puts people off. So what can we do to make it a simpler process for those kinds of procurements? And then finally, improving how we build social value right in at the specification stage. So rather than it being a bolt-on, which technically we have to treat it as that through procurement policy, because it very clearly says that social value is incremental to the value of the contract. This is about how can we build those principles into the specifications and the requirements from the scratch. So this is how we're doing. So that's our social value action plan. It started, or it got approved in September. So we're now into some of the delivery phase. And the idea is that we will have an annual action plan with an annual report that goes with our budget every year that says, this is the impact we've had. A little bit like a modern slavery statement for anyone who's familiar, which says, this is what we did last year. This is what we're going to do next year. So far, though, in terms of the contracting vehicles, our first framework is in development, which is for a property and FM. We're calling it the MD framework, the multidisciplinary framework, which covers off a lot of different professional services within the property sphere, from design and consultancy to others. That's in development. We're building the legal arguments that allow us to reserve certain lots within that framework for SMEs and VCSEs and Oxfordshire-based businesses. We've got a social value policy refresh, as I said, which is underway. It is redrafted and it is going through the approval process as we speak. Not as we speak, it's after work. Over the coming weeks, we have drafted prioritized social value criteria. So we've run workshops across the council internally, looking at, well, what are our priorities? What are our strategic missions? How does that translate to social value? From those 2 points, we will then start building the evaluation guidance. So there's a dependency there. We've only just started looking at those barriers for SMEs and VCSEs and how we can address some of those key barriers. That's still very early days. We do have a proof of concept Microsoft Copilot, which is an AI tool, proof of concept agent that we can deploy internally to help guide a user through building their specifications. So we'll ask them prompts and say, have you thought about this? How will you measure success? Have you thought about how the supplier should engage with the communities? Or, we'll build questions into that as a guided process to help them build their specifications. So that's a whistle-stop tour through our social value action plan. That's all my slides. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Annette and Richard. So we're just going to move on to the next section of our agenda, which is around opportunities to deliver and benefit from social value. So I'm going to introduce Karen from South Vale to come and talk about community employment plans.
Right. I don't know how many of you know anything about community employment plans. Some of you are nodding, so that's good. But these started in around 2018. So just before that, the then Oxford put together an evidence paper, and we were looking at the fact that in Oxfordshire we had lots of developments coming through, and we weren't really able to quantify the benefits we were getting from them. So they put together an evidence paper, and the district councils were consulted, and we all agreed that we needed to do more. So we devised community employment plans. These were actually used across the UK, and some of the big developers were already doing those. So we adopted it. We tried to get it into both of our local plans as policies. Unfortunately, the inspector took it out of the South Oxfordshire plan, so we do not have a requirement for community employment plans, but we do in the Vale, and that is a condition of planning. So the developer can't start building until we've done the plan, and I actually discharge that condition. So we actually get them, and then we monitor the plan from that point. And I'm not sure what the other districts do, but I think they may have Section 106 agreements or something similar. So, but that's how we do it in the Vale. So across the districts, there's 1,000 square metres or 500 homes, which would be considered a large-scale development. We've got many different types of developments. So we've had supermarkets, data centres, shopping centres. I think there's one for a football stadium. So all sorts of developments, and they can be 12 months to 10-year builds. So they cover two phases. So that's the construction phase, and they also cover the end phase, which is when it's built and then it becomes operational, and it's around the employment that you can get from that. So we work with Enterprise Oxfordshire. They've developed a template, and we all use the same template so that it's quite easy to look at the data from that. And we would work with the developer on the four things that are covered there. So we'd look at local labour. We have an employment tracker using the Oxfordshire postcode, so we can make sure that people are locally living locally and employed on those developments. We would also look at supply chain and procurement, and that would be usually for both of those two bits. It would normally be between 10 and 25% that we'd be looking at for those. And then we would also work with the developer to look at which schools, colleges might be the best for them to work with. If it's a large scale development, like a large housing development, we might suggest that they work with Abingdon and Whitney College because they have a construction T-level course. So we would point them in that direction. And with apprenticeships, they're quite difficult to assess. So we would look at the individual development. So for example, if it's a supermarket, it would be less than a 12-month build. So you'd probably be lucky to get one or two apprentices. But if it was a housing development over several years, you would get a lot more apprentices. And then with the communities, we would look at what that development is and who the local organisations are that they could link with, and we make those introductions for them. So I thought it might be useful to give you an example of something that we've just completed. So this was Diamond on Harwell, and you'll see from the slide there's some quite good outcomes from that. We always speak to the developers to try and get zero waste on site because we think that's really important, and that meets the corporate priorities for the council as well. So they would normally work with organisations like ACE Training or Oxford Wood Recycling, and actually Abingdon and Whitney College quite often very glad to get excess materials. And then we usually ask the developer to choose a local charity to work with. Quite often, some of the big developers like to work with national charities, but we always ask them to pick something locally that they would support. On this development, they chose to support the Oxfordshire Homeless Association, and they're helping them to renovate a house. They also did a toy drive last Christmas, and they donated all the toys to a local charity. And then we asked them to work with local schools and colleges. They did a talk at Didcot Girls' School, and they also did a workshop at Sophia. So currently we've got 6 community employment plans in operation in the Vale. We've just completed the Diamond one, which I gave you an example of. So that's sort of social value we're getting from those. Grove has only just started, so we haven't had any reporting for that currently. The Valley Park is a very large development. I don't know if any of you know it, but it's based in Didcot, around 4,500 houses. It's several years built. And apprenticeship-wise, I think the target is 200 apprenticeships by the end of the build, so quite considerable. There's several developers on site, and we have a consultant, and we meet quarterly, and they all report back on the different targets that we've set. So the ones that are set in stone are the employment, apprenticeships, supply chain businesses. The things that aren't are the charities and working with the local community, because there's no targets around that. And it's just talking to them and trying to get them to help us. So, for example, Taylor Wimpey, who are on Valley Park, they donated 10,000 bricks to ACE Training recently. And they also sponsor the local cricket team and football team. And then another one of the developers, I think it's MV Kelly, they worked with the Berrin Centre doing the flooring, and that was around £40,000 worth of work that they did for free. And they've also, I think they've supported Seesaw, the bereavement charity. Yeah, yeah. So that is an option that they can put into the powerhouse. I mean, I think it just depends. Every community employment plan is bespoke, so it depends on how receptive the developers. And there's usually 4 or 5 different ones on site, so yeah, it just depends. What they're willing to do. And then Kingsgrove has been going for about 4 years. That's a large housing development. There's a school, a care home, nursery, retail space there. And paid for as part of the community employment plan, we've got a community development officer who is employed by the council but paid for through the plan. And they work with the residents groups, and they try to provide opportunities for the community. So we work with them. And again, Kingsgrove, all the usual targets around apprenticeships and stuff, but they've actually again worked with I think they sponsor the football team. They also have given money to the brass band, Sweatbox, which is the youth club. And they work with the school quite a lot, and they've had lots of site visits from King Alfred's, etc. And then I just wanted to sort of highlight the different plans that we've had previously. So we started off, I think 2018 was the Westway Shopping Centre, and the developer actually had prisoners come on day release to work on the site, and they also supported the supply chain business, local scaffolding company, to work to win the tender by underwriting some of the financial expenses for doing that. And Audi in Abingdon, that was a very quick build, so that was only like 10 months. So we couldn't get a lot of apprentices. I think we had one or two, but because when the supermarket was open, we had actually 95% of local employment from that development. And we also worked with the job centre, and they had an open day at Abingdon and Whitney, and they actually guaranteed interviews, and they streamlined their recruitment process. And then again, with Amazon, the data center, there's not much opportunity for apprenticeships in the construction phase because it's very short, and also the end phase, there's not much employment. So they worked with Activate Learning, and they did a digital infrastructure course at the University Technical College in Didcot. So I just wanted to summarise the benefits we've had since April. Across Oxfordshire, we've had about 58 plans. We've currently got around 40 in operation. So you'll see there's huge amount of jobs created, apprenticeships, and social value, and that's just from April this year. We've got two really large national infrastructure schemes starting. One is with Thames Water, the reservoir, and we're doing some workforce development with them to try and look at training opportunities. A key part of this is actually looking at the workforce development, because there's lots of large-scale developments, and as much as we would like to have 25% employment on every site, that may not be possible. There may not be the people to have these jobs, so we have to look at the workforce development side of things. And Thames Water have actually joined your groups, haven't they, Emma? So they're on the social value and the inclusive employment group. So, and then the other one is the Botley West Solar Farm that spans over 3 district council areas. And again, we're working with the other districts, and all of this is coordinated by Enterprise Oxfordshire, who collate all the different data so that we can see what the benefits are. Because I don't know if you're aware, district councils don't always work very well together. And so it's quite difficult, but yeah, the benefits are all for Oxfordshire, but obviously we work in our own geographical areas to get those benefits. But again, that's where Enterprise Oxford come in to actually help coordinate all of that. I think the main thing about the community employment plans is that if we didn't have them, we wouldn't be able to have a dialogue with the developers. And we found that once we have that dialogue, they're very, very keen to engage, and they often do more than we ask them to. So once the condition of planning has been discharged, they don't have to engage with us anymore, but they do. So, and I've got plans that have been going for 4 or 5 years, and they're still coming to the table, having those conversations. And what we try to do is make it a two-way process so that we're giving them support as well and helping them. And I think the key thing for us is that we can actually influence how they spend their money. We can influence the organisations that they work with, and in a much better way, because they don't have the local knowledge. So I think that's really important that we do that. And the other thing, which we wouldn't have had without the plans, is we wouldn't have the data. So the data is important, so we can actually show the benefits of what we're getting from these large developments, because people don't always want them. But it's a good way to help us to see what we're getting. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. And now I'd like to hand over to James, who's going to talk about Match My Project.
I'll start by just giving you an overview about the platform and how it works. Then I'll move on to talk about Oxford City Council's role with Match My Project. And I'll give you an overview of some of the types of organisations and projects on the platform, and some specific examples of projects that have been completed and just a few takeaways. So what is Match My Project? Well, it's an online platform to bring together businesses and community organizations to promote social value. So community organizations can post projects and seek support for their work, and suppliers can make offers, and they can also quantify their social value work through the platform. The types of support that can be provided includes volunteering staff time, donating goods and materials, and donating small amounts of cash. So it's not meant to replace other funding streams, but small cash donations of, say, £2,000 or £3,000 towards a larger cost is permitted. And then a match occurs when a community organisation accepts an offer from a supplier, or a supplier agrees to support a project. And the good thing about the platform is it also quantifies all that support. So it gives you like the total amount of volunteering hours, the amount of goods and materials, and so forth. And I should mention as well that this is free for community organisations and businesses. It's the council or the housing provider that pays to be on Match My Project. So joining doesn't cost a business or a community organisation anything, although apparently they're considering some kind of add-on for businesses if they want to pay for that. So in terms of the council's role, well, we see this as part of our work to create a fairer economy. So it's something you can see in the context of creating a more inclusive Oxford. We like it because it makes it easier for businesses to support community organisations. And yeah, we've been working with Match My Project for about 2 years now. So our role includes working with the Match My Project administration team and coordinating at a local level. You could describe our role as a mediator or a matchmaker. And on a day-to-day basis, I do things like approve applications from different organizations and publish projects. But I'm also there to try and build relationships between community organizations and businesses. As you've heard already tonight, there are links between Match My Project and the council's procurement process. So as Annette mentioned, 10% of the weighting for the evaluation of any tender, request for quote or proposal has to, sorry, 10% goes towards social value. And suppliers are encouraged when they receive the documents for a tender, an RFQ, or a proposal to sign up to Match My Project, so they can see what projects are on there and what community organisations, so they can think about how they're going to deliver on that. Again, with the community employment and procurement plans that Karen was talking about, when Oxford City Council puts in place a SEP with a developer, we encourage them to use Match My Project as a way of delivering on their social value work, particularly with community organisations. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about the types of organisations that are on the platform in Oxford. So there are currently, actually, I think it's about 75 community organisations on there now. You won't find this on the platform itself, but when I came into the role, I undertook a review to find out a bit more about the types of organisations. And in terms of community organisations, I identified that 20% are arts, entertainment and recreation organisations. 20% of the community organisations are engaged in other service activities, so like clubs and societies, those sorts of organisations. 17% are education community organisations, so there could be schools and colleges. 14% are engaged in human health and social work activities. 6% are accommodation and food service providers or involved in those activities. So we've got a few community kitchens and food hubs like, I don't know if Syrian Sisters are on there actually, but those sorts of organisations. Again, this is my own sort of categorisation. So the rest I categorise as miscellaneous. Moving on to the suppliers that are on the platform in Oxford, there are over or around 180 suppliers currently. And again, this is my own sort of categorization of these, but the majority are professional, scientific and technical activities, 48%. So we've got quite a lot of consultants on there and architects. 22% of suppliers are construction businesses. 9% are engaged in administrative support services activities. 5% are information and communication businesses, so like ICT businesses. There's one that's too small, it hasn't got actually a number, but yeah, there's also a number of miscellaneous ones as well. In terms of the types of projects that you'll find on the platform, so there are currently around 40 projects waiting for support. 10% are in progress and 12 have been completed. But in terms of those ones that are live at the moment, again, you won't find this sort of categorization on the platform. It's something I did just before this to look at which ones are currently live. But the majority of the projects, 46%, are social projects. So they're about supporting different social groups, whether they're homeless people or refugees, what have you. 38% are about building the capacity of community organisations. So it could be helping them with their marketing or other operational type support. 11% of the projects are economic. So they're about helping people into employment or training. And 5% are environmental. So it could be things like trying to improve an open space or reduce waste, that sort of thing. Now, I wanted to give you just a few examples of real projects that have taken place, that have largely been completed on the platform. So this is an example of an economic project between ACE Training and St. Thomas's Day Nursery. So ACE Training, they provide training in construction skills, and as part of the students' training, they have to do some work experience. And it just happened that St. Thomas Day Nursery needed some support to remove all the fixtures and fittings in their nursery. And the students came in and they got that first-hand experience, which is going to be really useful for them in terms of getting future work. This is another community-led project between the Cutteslowe greenhouses and a local architecture company called Jessup Cook and Architects. As I understand, Cutteslowe greenhouses wanted someone to design like the future or potential future use for their site.
They were going to retain the greenhouses, but they wanted to look at some of the communal spaces and a potential cafe. And I think the original ask was for 20 hours, but Jessup Cook and Architects came in and actually provided 30 hours and provided really good design of that site. Just another example of a social project. So Night Build, they responded to a project which A2 Dominion, the housing association, put up. So the A2 Dominion were looking for carpets for their clients, either to use in the A2 Dominion properties or for when the clients left and went into the private rental market. And Night Build, who had joined Match My Project, they saw this project and they realized, because they're working at Beaver House in the city centre, they had all these floor tiles, like thousands of them. So they took them up and provided them to A2 Dominion, and resulted in really good outcomes, and that the clients benefited, but also saved all those tiles from landfill. So just a few takeaways. If you're considering going on the platform, or you're already there using the platform already. So community organizations might want to think about how you can make use of the skills, knowledge, and experience of the businesses on the platform. I'd also suggest trying to break down the work into really manageable projects and be specific about the support that you want, because that way you're more likely to get a match and get that support that you need. For businesses, you might want to think about how the community organizations or the projects fit with your corporate objectives. Or it could be that you're working on a particular site and you're interested in a certain geographical area, perhaps. And then also, for businesses, think about what skills, knowledge, and experience that you can offer that community organizations might not have. So it could be like, that architecture work that I mentioned earlier. And as Night Build found, you might have raw materials that you're disposing of that could be of benefit to community organizations and to their clients. And finally, if you're a business, just be realistic about the time and resources you can provide to a community organization. Great, thank you.
Thank you very much, James and Karen. So we'll move on to the final section of presentations. We'll hear from two fantastic businesses that work across Oxfordshire and have really embedded social value within their practice. And I'd like to welcome Richard from Cleenol to speak first. Thank you.
Cleenol is a company based in Banbury. We manufacture cleaning and hygiene products for industry. We don't do any retail work, so you won't have seen us on the shop shelves. But if you are a hotel, a restaurant, a care home, a hospital, if you're in the armed services, or if you're in a local authority, then you will know about us. We've been going for 75 years. The foundation of the company in 1948 followed a chance meeting. The family were coal merchants in Birmingham. Their biggest customer was the Shell Chemical Company. Until the Second World War, if you wanted to do washing up, you used soap flakes. And during the war, the government needed the raw materials that were used to make soap for the war effort. So they asked the Shell Chemical Company to come up with something else to do washing up with. And they came up with the first washing up liquid, which was called Teepol. They were a Dutch company, and Teepol in Dutch, we've only discovered recently, means a teaspoonful. So that's how it started. They knew that they could sell it into households, but didn't know whether there was an industrial application for it. So they asked the coal merchants to put it on the back of the coal carts to see if they could sell it round local industry. And that's how it started. We moved from there into Banbury. There we are. Then and now. Very smart. The figure who was actually on the scaffolding there was me. 1985, we started really our big effort to work with the local community. There was a campaign to launch a hospice near Banbury, Catherine House Hospice. We found that people were reluctant to give or to rattle tins at front doors. So we manufactured a washing up liquid for them, branded Catherine House, and they sold it on the doorstep. And it was an enormous success and helped fund this wonderful place that we have supported for the last 40 years. And I ended up chair there for a decade as well. Moving on to the year before last, we celebrated our 75 years in business and set the employees a challenge to raise £75,000 for 3 local charities of their choice. They chose Catherine House Hospice, Oxfordshire Mind, and Oxfordshire Air Ambulance, and achieved that by throwing themselves out of aircraft, cycling vast distances, running up mountains, and all sorts of crazy things. And Dame Pruleaf came to present the charities with the cheques at the end of the day. So here we have this is the corrected slide. I'm delighted. This is what we did last year. 194 volunteer hours, 585 hours of work experience delivered, and we have been in touch with 502 young people who've responded to questionnaires asking how we can help young people in the Banbury area. And I'll come on to that in a moment. I've been asked to talk about how and why we embedded CSR into our business practice and how we managed to do it. To start with, the picture on the right-hand side, to the right is my son, who is now the chief executive of the company. I've retired and run the charity arm, Cleenol, in the community. To the left is a man called Malcolm Cross, who's been with the company now for 53 years and is still working for us, as are 2 more generations of his family. And we actually at one stage had 4 generations of the same family working for the business, and the youngest one of those is still with us. Year before last, we achieved B Corp certification, thanks to Steph sitting over there, an enormous amount of work, 18 months involvement in the application, and it has proved to be an invaluable marker demonstrating the social value that we as a company believe in, and also recognizing the fact that we deliver that social value. It's also been recognized with a number of awards, Family Business Awards. We were the Employer of the Year of the Thames Valley and Sunday Times Best Place to Work. So we're all very proud of that. 91% of companies see positive correlation between employee volunteering and employment engagement. This top heading, why do we invest so heavily in CSR, is really what I've been asked to talk about today. But I've got an audience of people who recognize what it is anyway. You all understand it, you all believe in it, and I think our B Corp accreditation shows that we are delivering it. I think as a businessman, I'd like to just talk a little bit about what it is that the business itself receives as a result of that work that we do. And the reason that we do all of this, first of all, is because it is the right thing to do. We all believe that. We all know that. Secondly, there are positive business advantages in doing this. Recognition not only from other organizations, but from our own employees. I always say that you can choose who you go out with in the evening or at weekends or who you go on holiday with. You don't get to choose who you work with. And very often, people are thrown into a mix of people with different beliefs, whether they're religious, social, football, whatever, and they all have got to learn to work together. In our organization, they have two attributes that they share in common. One, they work for the company, and two, they are members of the local community. And when they see the company doing good within the local community, there is a positive benefit within that workforce. You get recognition from them. Catherine House Hospice, as an example, well over half of our employees have got friends or relatives who have benefited from those things that Catherine House have provided, and therefore recognize and appreciate the work that we do to help that charitable organization. Happy employees are productive employees. Happy employees don't spend as much time off work. Happy employees don't have as many mental health problems. And happy employees don't go and work somewhere else. So you retain them, you don't have to retrain them, and there is a positive benefit in that. Looking to the future, I just want to raise a couple of initiatives that we are doing. First of all, the bottom one, Cleenol in the community. This is a CIC that we have created. The philosophy behind it is that we take all of the profit from the sales within 15 miles of Banbury and we reinvest that profit into charities within 15 miles of Banbury. The Sun Fund, which is being launched next year, is an even more ambitious project. This is bringing together the business leaders of the major businesses in Banbury and asking them to contribute to a fund. We will create, or we nearly have completed creating, a committee of what we're calling youth champions who will put together projects for the benefit of young people in Banbury. They will put those projects to the business leaders who will then decide whether they will fund those and ask the local authorities for match funding for those projects. So we have had an enormously positive response to that, and that's going to be launched in March of next year. Cleenol in the community, again run by Steph, has some initiatives which, again, I would ask other businesses to consider doing. We have a thing called a day to make a difference. Every employee can take a day off work on full pay as long as they are going to work for a charity or for a good cause within the local area. And the figures on volunteering that I showed you before reflect the number of hours that we're doing. And we are encouraging other businesses in Banbury to do the same. And finally, a plea just amended somewhat because of what I've heard today. Obviously, do business locally. We have a philosophy. You need something. Can we make it ourselves? If you can't, can you buy it in Banbury? If you can't buy it in Banbury, can you buy it within 50 miles of Banbury? And if not, can you buy it in this country? And you go through those hoops before you then go to a global organization. Wherever we are, wherever we can, we use local suppliers. We also encourage other companies to come to us to learn from what we have been doing. I want to finish just picking up on one or two of the things I've heard. First of all, 10% in a tender for social value is nowhere near enough. I would say let's start at 30%. I also want to quote from Oscar Wilde, who talked about the person who knew the price of everything and the value of nothing. There is so much value, and social value can easily be written into so many things. And I'm sorry, Annette, I think I don't agree with the fact that it can't apply to products. It should apply to absolutely everything. And we should be encouraging all companies to do the same kind of thing that we are doing to enhance the community in which we live. That's me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard. Really inspiring. And now I'm going to hand over to Paula from Beard to talk about the work that they're doing.
Hi, everyone. I'm Paula Baleson from Beard. I'm the Social Value Manager at Beard. And I'll be talking similar topic from Richard. Tough act to follow, though. Really great presentation. And I hope that you'll see a lot of the same principles reflected in my talk. So talking about the supplier's perspective and how we've embedded social value from within a construction company. Just a bit about Beard. We're a 133-year-old family-owned and run business, and working across multiple sectors, delivering extraordinary projects through our 5 regional offices, anything from property maintenance right up to new build and restoration flagship projects. And hopefully if you drive around the city, you'll see a few Beard signs. Yes, got that right. So social value, why do we do it? Well, it's contractual. So from 1st of October, it is mandatory under the new Procurement Act. So we can meet our customer expectations and needs by demonstrating that we deliver social value on every project that meets our customer and stakeholder needs. But it also aligns with our business values and our business plan. We're a responsible business. We care about the communities that we work in. And to us, part of that is looking for ways that we can help to strengthen communities and leave them better tomorrow than today. It links really well to our workforce well-being as well. We want to be a great place to work. And like Richard was saying, there is a massive positive effect on mental and physical health. There's great intrinsic value that comes from people being involved in community, in the activities that strengthen the communities around them. And you know, those throwing yourself out of airplanes and running up hills, you know, people bond over that. They really do. But they're also contributing to a bigger cause. And there's great intrinsic value in that. It creates a multiplying effect. It also strengthens our own teams by creating a shared purpose beyond construction projects. And certainly that will help them to navigate difficulties at work. We work in a very competitive environment. How we navigate difficult issues sets us apart from our competition. So there's definite business benefit in social value. How do we do it? Well, 2024, we introduced a tailored social value framework, and under that, that now guides our delivery under 4 key pillars, and ensures that all the social value plans that we deliver are structured to support central government missions, local government needs, community needs, but also supporting wider industry needs and our own business goals. Leadership support is really important, absolutely essential for embedding it throughout the organization. And at Beard, it's become a standard item on our agendas. Naturally, we've been able to do more with a dedicated team. We have a social value coordinator in every region driving with that local knowledge and building relationships. And we've also invested in reporting and monitoring software. So we're providing the tools for them to do their jobs well. But it's very much about team delivery. Everybody gets involved. And through partnership and collaboration, we can deliver far greater impact, which I'll talk about again later in a moment. But ultimately, we want to create long-lasting, meaningful outcomes, and delivery is culture-driven. Measurement, monitoring, reporting is process driven. I should have said monitoring and reporting rather than measurement, because it's not just about a number or a percentage. The real meaning is um, in the impact that we create in changing lives. But it does need to be recorded and evidenced to support that contractual side, to have a positive impact on our um, tender winning and work winning, and therefore creating some return on investment for how we've resourced it in the business. In practice, we think we found our sweet spot. We deliver under all of these areas, and through that deliver real value to communities. I'll go through each through, in the form of practical examples, and you'll see that local supply chain is the thread that the golden thread through it all. But somebody did speak about supporting local businesses, so that local pound is really important. But we have that opportunity to bring them into the work that we're doing. We're on site for longer, so we can really offer them to take them on that journey with us. Um, and so we involve our supply chain in everything that we do. So inspiring careers in construction. This is the people and skills pillar of our framework. And it's a big part of what our team does. By building tomorrow's workforce, we're enabling pathways into the industry. We're boosting construction skills, developing local skills, feeding our own talent pipeline, but also supporting our local schools and colleges to bridge that gap between education and industry, which strengthens the workforce coming in. So it can be anything from touch points to really meaningful and engaging activities, and of course that support of apprentices and T-level placements. In 2025 year to date, we have created 10,000 student touch points through this work, and we've supported 79 people into careers in the industry. So that's right from our year 10s work experience showing a little bit of interest, right through to our year in industry, our undergraduate cohort. We've had great success with bricklaying taster sessions as an engaging, interactive activity, and people of every age enjoy that. So just something to break the ice and get people feeling, what it's like to be on site, what it's like to work in construction. And we support the industry through things like the nationwide Open Doors campaign every year. It's really important to support those big campaigns as well. A large part of our early careers offering this year in Oxford is our support for the Abingdon and Whitney College T-level students doing the design, surveying and planning in construction course. So there's 12 students that we'll be supporting through a mix of site visits, taster sessions, workshops, talks by industry experts, practical assignments, and our supply chain getting involved. So recently they've had a welcome breakfast with our Oxford director, a talk about culture and values and what it means to work at Beard. And they've had a detailed health and safety introduction, and they are now site ready. And from next week, we'll be doing site visits every week in Oxford. We're really excited about what that's going to, the value that's going to bring. Kate might recognize Danny in the middle of the photo. That's a photo that we took at something we did with Yellow Submarine Charity. But community engagement is always bespoke. In Oxford, we are trusted to work on some very interesting buildings with a lot of stories to tell and a lot of high community interests. So here what we do is extend our site visits to wider industry groups to bring that community into our part of the world and the other side of the site boundary. We take a really inclusive approach to that. And to be honest, we have some fantastic sites to showcase. Just as an example, St. John's College, Pusey Lane, we're building to passive house principles. At Hertford College, we have some really fascinating archaeology and and architectural stories to tell alongside a very ambitious build. So we take the opportunity to share those stories far and wide. But community engagement could also take the form of volunteering time, like Richard spoke about, or supporting local community projects, or maybe even just supporting your customer campaigns, campaigns that your supply chain might be running. Um, who are you working with? What's important to them, and how can you get involved? Charitable work, something we do a lot of. We have a charity of the year, at least one for each of our 5 regional offices. And that's very well supported by our foundation, the Beard Charitable Foundation, which provides a lot of match funding for the activities that we get involved in. So it's designed to inspire individual and personal action. And we lead by example and support people in their own individual causes. We recently held our second cyclothon, so hopefully this becomes an annual event in the calendar. But um, we managed to raise £20,000 in a day for the Oxfordshire Sports and Community Partnership, and that's before our Beard Charitable Foundation funding. So we're waiting this week to find out what that will be. But hopefully we get to £30,000 or more. So if the eagle-eyed amongst you will spot the amount on the check is not quite right. That's last year's photo, and we haven't had the pleasure of handing over this year's check yet. On the environmental side, some of the things that we've done is be a charitable foundation donation to the Earth Trust, enabled us to support their Levelling Up for Environmental Stewardship program. And this was children from less affluent areas of Oxford that hadn't even been on school trips before and didn't tend to go into green spaces with their parents. So, and that helped us to bring together our goals of environmental stewardship, education, supporting young people. What we've done on a site level, for example, one of our sites, Holland and Cooper, is supporting the Gloucester Wildlife Fund Nature Nurture Appeal and helping to fund £25,000 of shortfall in funding there. This picture over here was taken at a tree planting day. We're very lucky to own 194 acres of woodland, and we, as part of the woodland management cycle, we involved our staff. We brought them together across the 5 offices, and we held a tree planting day during Mental Health Week. Something else we do in that space is open it up at no cost to a local social enterprise, Urban Pursuits, and they work with young people to reintegrate them into society and education, people who have found their way out of mainstream education. And then lastly, what we're doing recently, well, at the moment on the environmental side, is an internal campaign designed to spark people, or designed to encourage change through individual, everyday, conscious actions, and hoping to sort of reduce carbon emissions and waste through that campaign as well. So I thought we have to touch on something like this, don't we? Just some of the challenges and lessons that we've learned along the way. Um, Cost of delivery is always a question raised and a talking point. Everyone thinks someone's got a budget for it, and social value can be delivered with no budget. But it's good to define the rules of play and to know, the boundaries within which you're working. Innovation and creativity is the next one. We're always looking to do something different, new, creative. Um, and that's great, but we can't have the best idea every day. So my suggestion would be to stick to what you know works, to what supports your business thinking, but customize it, tailor it to the audience, but stick with what works. Right partners and scaling impact enables innovation through diversity. Grant spoke about the changing business landscape, the rise in social value, the new Procurement Act. Partnerships really can help to bring wider spread benefits, more of the multiplying effect that we spoke about. And that's very much the case with the concept of co-creation. So here's a photo from an event that we held in September, where we invited people from the network in Oxford, from private, public, and third sector organisations. Some of the good people in this room were able to attend, so thank you to them. But co-creation, we think, is an emerging trend. It's one up from collaboration. It brings the benefits of shared expertise. It leads to broader impact, faster scaling, resource efficiency maximizes outcomes. We can cascade it through the supply chain. And of course, there's greater transparency and credibility. So through those new ways of working with the third sector, we can amplify our impact. And for us, this means less transactional relationships with our partners and more co-creation. I hope it's clear how passionate we are about what we're doing, and we really do want to make a difference. After this event, I did share some signposting information just to the wide network of organizations that we have in Oxford that are working to support each other and maximize their impact through shared values. So if you would like a copy of that, please do get in touch. If you don't manage to speak to me today, you'll find me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to send that on to you if it's something that you'd like to see. But thank you very much for listening. I appreciate you've been listening for a long time, so thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much to all of our speakers. We've overrun very much, so we're not going to have time to do the full panel session, but I'm happy to take perhaps 2 questions now. And then if you do have any other questions, please email them to me and we can circulate them to the speakers, and we can share those answers with everyone as well. So I think this is a roving mic. So I've got one question here.
Thank you. I think it's been a tremendous evening. I've certainly learned a lot. I'm very old. I'm 77 next week, and all through my business life, I've given, and lots of people in this room will know that. But one of the things I've done is not really shouted it all out. And I'm just thinking of all those businesses that, like me, don't go out and tell everybody what we do all the time. And there's other businesses like us which really don't realise the value. If they did shout out about it, they might be heard by local authorities and other people and be given a chance to tender. So perhaps I should shout more going forward in the future, or get other people to shout more in the future, because if more people shout about it and they get more business, then more business are going to shout about it, and it's going to roll on, isn't it? I've been a total twat by not broadcasting what we've been doing. You know how much we've done. I know you have. We've been together many, many years, but you don't know 2% of it. But there you go.
Thank you. One final question.
It's really to the 3 procurement teams. Karen, I appreciate not procurement, but you'll forgive me if I lump you in with Annette and Richard. I didn't hear any mention of Section 16 preliminary market engagement, and obviously, I'm a real big fan that actually this is related to risk. You did actually, Nat, sorry. The whole thing is related to risk in the category that you're spending in. Richard, I'm so pleased that OCC is finally doing something in this space because it's been a long time waiting. But you didn't mention preliminary market engagement. Are you thinking that has got a part to what you're planning on doing? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a fear of doing it before the new act because of being challenged for whatever reason. But we've done it for a long time, certainly on large scale projects. So when we did the recruitment campaign, when we did the leisure contract, or things like that, and then we try and get smaller business into that to collaborate with larger organisations to creating that local supply chain. So we'll continue to do that at the city.
I do want to close, but I think it's been a fantastic evening. I hope all of you in some way have found it novel and interesting. I found it really interesting. I do want to thank Emma and Grant for essentially pulling together the agenda tonight. I want to thank all the speakers. You're all champions in your own way, and I know there's others in the room who are just as much champions of what we've been talking about tonight. I would like to know how we think we can continue to spread this. So whether it is other districts in Oxfordshire coming up to speed with some of what you're doing, other businesses doing more of what I know businesses in this room are doing, dare I say other colleges doing more of what I know some colleges are doing. This ought to be about spreading the good practice, as Richard, I think, so eloquently put it. Challenge us as the OIEP in terms of perhaps how we can help you make connections. That's one part very much of what the OIEP can do. And if I may, I think there's a huge opportunity in Equinox to get behind this. For those of you that may not know much about Equinox, and indeed many of us don't know that much about Equinox yet, but it is a major initiative being launched by the university to help drive up the university's own success in innovation, and through that, the prosperity of the region. And many of us are looking to that initiative to deliver real lasting benefits into the community. And it has that opportunity because the convening power and the weight of the university behind it and the players that are behind it absolutely has that benefit. So many of us are looking as to how we can actually engage through that process to really see that happen. I do hope that can be the case. So thanks all very much again. Thank you very much for coming. See you all soon.